Hey, and welcome. In this video, we're exploring self-care, not as a trend, not as a luxury, and not as something you earn after being productive, but as a psychological necessity. Self-care is often misunderstood. It's reduced to small rituals, surface-level advice, or moments of indulgence. But real self-care goes much deeper. It's closely connected to mental health, emotional regulation, stress, boundaries, and recovery. We'll look at why self-care is essential for psychological stability, why so many people struggle to practice it, what happens when self-care is missing for too long, and how self-care can be lived realistically in everyday life. This is not a motivational video and not a list of quick fixes. It's a calm, reflective exploration of what it actually means to take care of yourself in a sustainable way. Take your time with this video. There is nothing here you need to rush. Chapter 1. Why self-care is not a luxury, but a psychological requirement. Self-care is often framed as something optional, something extra, something you do when everything else is taken care of. But from a psychological perspective, this framing is deeply misleading. Human beings are not designed for continuous output. We are biological and emotional systems that require regulation, recovery, and repair. Just like muscles weaken without rest, the nervous system loses flexibility without care. Self-care is not about optimization, it's about maintenance. Without regular care, the system doesn't simply keep functioning at the same level. It adapts, and often in costly ways. Stress becomes the default state. Tolerance for frustration decreases. Emotional responses become sharper or flatter. The world feels louder, faster, and more demanding. This isn't a personal failure, it's physiology. When self-care is missing, the nervous system remains in a state of readiness, always preparing for the next demand, the next task, the next evaluation. Over time, this constant readiness becomes exhaustion, and exhaustion is not laziness, it's a signal. Chapter 2. Why self-care feels difficult, unnatural, or even wrong. If self-care is so essential, why do so many people struggle to practice it? One answer is simple but uncomfortable. Many people were never taught that their needs matter. Early environments shape how we relate to care. Some people learned that rest must be earned, that emotions are inconvenient, that being useful is safer than being honest, that taking up space leads to conflict. Others grew up in systems where care was inconsistent, conditional, or absent. In those environments, the nervous system adapts. It learns, I'll be okay if I function. I'll be okay if I don't need much. I'll be okay if I don't slow down. These adaptations can look like strength, and for a long time they may even work, but they come with a cost. Self-care begins to feel unfamiliar. Slowing down feels unsafe. Rest triggers guilt instead of relief. This is not because you're doing self-care wrong. It's because your system learned to survive without it. Chapter 3. What happens when self-care is missing for too long? When self-care is neglected over time, the effects are rarely immediate. They accumulate quietly. At first, the system compensates. You push through, you normalize exhaustion, you rely on willpower, you ignore early signals. But compensation has limits. Eventually, the system shifts into a different mode, one shaped by chronic stress rather than flexibility. Psychologically, this may show up as persistent tension, irritability, emotional numbness, or overwhelm, difficulty concentrating, loss of motivation, reduced joy. Physiologically, it may show up as sleep disturbances, fatigue that doesn't resolve headaches, or stomach issues, increased sensitivity to noise, light, or social input. What's important here is this. These reactions are not signs that something is wrong with you. They are signs that care has been missing for too long. Ironically, this is often the point where self-care feels hardest. The system is so used to operating under pressure that slowing down feels threatening. Rest no longer feels restorative. It feels uncomfortable. This is not a failure of self-care. It's a sign that self-care is overdue. Chapter 4. Redefining self-care. Regulation instead of indulgence. One of the biggest obstacles to meaningful self-care is how narrowly it's defined. Self-care is often portrayed as indulgence, taking a break, doing something pleasant, treating yourself. While these things can be helpful, they are not the core of self-care. From a psychological perspective, self-care is regulation. It's the ongoing practice of noticing internal states rising, stress, emotional overload, and responding before collapse. Sometimes self-care looks gentle, sometimes it looks firm, sometimes it looks uncomfortable. Self-care can mean going to bed earlier instead of pushing saying no, instead of explaining setting limits even when it disappoints others, choosing rest over performance. These choices don't always feel good in the moment, but they protect the system over time. True self-care is often quiet and invisible. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't seek validation. It simply sustains you. Chapter 5. The first step, permission to have limits. Before techniques, routines, or habits, self-care begins with something more fundamental. Permission. Permission to acknowledge, this is too much. I'm tired. I need something different. Many people resist this step because it feels like giving up. But acknowledging limits is not resignation, it's orientation. Limits are not failures, they are information. When you stop arguing with your limits, something shifts. The system relaxes slightly. The inner conflict softens. You move from endurance to awareness. This is where self-care actually begins. Not with doing more, but with listening differently. Chapter 6. How self-care can be lived in everyday life. Self-care as an ongoing relationship, not a routine. One of the most common misunderstandings about self-care is the idea that it's something you do from time to time. A routine, a habit, a checklist. But self-care, in its deeper psychological sense, is not an activity. It's a relationship with your own inner state. Just as relationships with other people require attention, adjustment, and honesty, the relationship with yourself requires ongoing awareness. Needs change, capacity changes, context changes. What supports you during one phase of life may no longer support you later. This is why rigid self-care rules often fail. If self-care becomes another obligation, something you should do, it stops being care and becomes pressure. Living self-care means asking gentle, repeated questions. How am I actually doing right now? What feels supportive in this moment? What would reduce strain rather than add to it? These questions don't require perfect answers. They require attention. And attention, practiced consistently, becomes care. Chapter 7. Everyday self-care. Small decisions that change the system. Self-care is often imagined as something big. Long breaks, major changes, dramatic resets. But in daily life, self-care usually works through small, repeated decisions. Decisions that are easy to overlook because they don't look impressive. For example, choosing to pause before reacting, ending a day slightly earlier than planned, allowing yourself to be quiet without explaining, noticing tension, and adjusting instead of ignoring it. These moments don't feel heroic, but they shape the nervous system over time. Psychologically, consistency matters more than intensity. A system that receives small signals of safety and care regularly begins to trust that rest is allowed. That trust reduces baseline stress. Self-care in this sense is not about escape. It's about micro-adjustments that prevent overload. Chapter 8. Emotional self-care. Allowing experience without fixing it. One of the most overlooked aspects of self-care is emotional self-care. Not managing emotions, not fixing them, but allowing them. Many people relate to emotions as problems to solve. When something uncomfortable appears, sadness, anxiety, irritation, the immediate response is, how do I get rid of this? But emotional self-care begins with a different stance. This is here. Can I make space for it? Emotions are not demands, they are signals. Ignoring them increases tension. Fighting them increases intensity. Allowing emotions without acting them out or suppressing them creates regulation. This might look like naming what you feel without judging it, staying present with discomfort for a moment longer than usual. Not rushing to distract yourself immediately, letting emotions move through the body. This kind of self-care doesn't look active, but it builds resilience. It teaches the system, I can experience this without collapsing, and that knowledge reduces fear. Chapter 9. Boundaries as a form of self-care. One of the most practical expressions of self-care is boundaries. Boundaries are often misunderstood as rejection or distance, but psychologically, boundaries are about capacity. They define what you can reasonably carry. Without boundaries, demands accumulate, resentment grows, exhaustion increases. With boundaries, Energy becomes more predictable, relationships become clearer, self-respect strengthens. Setting boundaries is rarely comfortable at first. It often brings guilt, fear of disappointing others, anxiety about conflict, but discomfort here does not mean the boundary is wrong. It means the system is learning a new pattern. A helpful reframe is this: boundaries are not about controlling others. They are about protecting the relationship with yourself. Each time you honor a boundary, you reinforce the message: my needs are legitimate. That message is foundational to self-care. Chapter 10: Sustainable Self-Care, Letting Go of Perfection. Many people abandon self-care because they can't do it perfectly. They miss a day, they break a routine, they fall back into old patterns, and then they conclude, I'm bad at self-care. But self-care is not a skill you master once. It's a process you return to. Sustainable self-care allows inconsistency. It understands that life fluctuates, energy fluctuates, motivation fluctuates. What matters is not flawless execution. What matters is repair, returning to care after neglect, noticing when things drift, adjusting without self-criticism. Self-care becomes sustainable when it's grounded in realism rather than ideals. And realism is compassionate. As we come to the end of this video, one idea remains central. Self-care is not about becoming calmer, more productive, or more optimized. It's about staying connected to yourself in a world that constantly pulls attention outward. Self-care is not something you complete. It's an ongoing relationship, one shaped by honesty, limits, and responsiveness. Sometimes self-care looks like rest. Sometimes it looks like boundaries. Sometimes it looks like difficult but necessary change. All of it counts. Understanding self-care is not about perfection. It's about sustainability. Thank you for taking the time to reflect with me. Take care. Are there specific topics you're interested in or a particular question you'd like answered in your life? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe now and join me on your journey toward more clarity and inner strength.